Message, you should be good to go.
Good to go, Carolyn?
Good to go.
Okay. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Development, Environment, and Engineering Committee for the call to order for the 7th of November, 2023. And it's 10:02 a.m. We'll read the land acknowledgement. As we gather, we would like to acknowledge on behalf of Council and our community that we are meeting on the traditional territory of the Algonquin people. We would like to thank the Algonquin people and express our respect and support for their rich history. And we are extremely grateful for their many and continued displays of friendship. We'd also thank the generations of people who have taken care of this land for thousands of years. And if we can have roll call with you, Clerk Carolyn Eric.
Okay, so I've got Chair McDonald.
Present.
Councillor McWhorter.
Present.
Revimo. Chair McDonald, we have quorum.
Thank you. Any declaration of pecuniary interest? None noted. A reminder for those who are watching from home as we move into the presentation portion of our committee meeting, the materials being presented today can be found on the Town of Renfrew's website at renfrew.ca under the municipal calendar's appropriate meeting date. And we'll head to C1 under presentations. And Clerk Eric, I believe you have, you're going to be taking over from here.
Okay, so sorry, I'm just trying to get my screen to share. Of course, it's not going to share. One sec.
So we start looking at like A and B and C, but then we also have to...
Let me know if you guys can see that.
Yep, you're up.
Okay, do you see page 1?
Yes.
There we go. Okay. So this is just going to be a quick overview. I mean, I know at this point, most people are quite understanding of what the standing committee is. But obviously with the new changes that we have, just kind of going over what the new development, environment and engineering standing committee is going to handle in terms of reference. So the committee meeting will be basically the 3 members are Councillor McDonald, you're the chair, Councillor McWhorter, and Rebimo. I'm currently the staff lead for recording secretary. And then also Director Withers here is the main staff lead for anything related to those 3 main areas. Meeting schedule, we're the first Tuesday of every month, starting at 10 a.m. With the exception of July when we don't hold meetings. Meetings will mostly be taking place in either the council chambers or the council boardroom upstairs, but they will also be live broadcast on the YouTube channel. And then on the occasion like today when they are electronic. The mandate of the committee, so the Development, Environment and Engineering Standing Committee provides guidance on planning and building matters in accordance to the town's official plan, zoning bylaw, the Ontario Building Code, and applicable county and provincial policies and legislation. In addition, sorry, I've got something on my screen. In addition, the committee has oversight over asset management, engineering, and environmental matters, including forestry, energy, waste diversion, and solid waste management. So just some highlights. I am definitely not going to go through these word for word. They're both in the agenda as well as on our website. But basically, this committee is responsible directly to council for services that relate to development, engineering, environment. They make recommendation to council that it's related to planning policies and growth initiatives. They are making recommendation to council for long-term planning and delivering of capital programs of infrastructure and joint funding programs. They receive reports from staff regarding delegated authority and kind of, again, within the committee's realm, I guess, would you like to say, of development, engineering, and environment. Also, we receive delegations from the public and hold public hearings with regards to all planning matters and the Municipal Act. This committee will serve as the committee of adjustment and hold hearings and make decisions accordingly. And then staff will be monitoring federal and provincial legislation, and then any recommendations to council with regards to county or federal or provincial cost sharing programs. The slides go into a little bit more detail of exactly planning and building. Again, I'm not going to go through all this. We've gone through these quite a few times just over the course of the last year and a half. And it is available, again, both in this agenda and on the website. So planning and building matters, development charges, affordable housing, environment, engineering and asset management. And that is it. So is there any questions? I know that was kind of a fast overview, but.
None from my end. Councillor McWhirter, any questions?
No, I'm good.
Okay, thank you. And we'll move on to clerk, if you're good with that, we'll move on to C2. And I believe Director Withers is going to take over.
I'd be glad to. Thank you, Chair, and just give me a moment to share my screen here. I just need to get permission here from the clerk. Oh.
Yeah, just
oh,
gave you permission.
Yeah, got it. Perfect. Okay, let me screen mode here. Okay. Yes, thank you very much. So just providing the committee with a monthly update on the department. So just with restructuring the department's new name and portfolio of responsibility, so renamed Development, Environment, and Engineering. So engineering will include development review, capital projects, and asset management, the water and wastewater treatment plant, and the operation of overseeing the operation of that. With the new aqua contract will fall under the environment function through environmental manager of environmental services Springer. And we're going to be recruiting 3 new positions. We've had 2 interviews so far for the project management specialist and engineering technologist. We have the manager of engineering and asset management interview later this week. And we're hopeful we can extend offers to 3 qualified candidates in the not too distant future. The department's moving back to town hall this week. I'm actually in another office, temporary office, and then moving to my permanent home in the not too distant future. But I think for the most part, you're going to see staff kind of moving back to the admin building and kind of reconsolidate our functions in one place, which would be nice. Environmental services update. So the landfill grant, the grinding program. So that tender was awarded to NADCOR. It was a little under budget, which is great. So we are getting assistance from operations. Road crews have been very helpful in getting some operational and equipment work done at the landfill. So creating a second dumping pad, helping out with the new access road that'll go to the south facing slopes. Kind of discuss in a little bit here, and just moving material. So I've been very helpful there. So joint tender for solid waste. So that is out for tender. Expected award relatively shortly thereafter, and that contract will go to the current contract goes until April 2024. So we'll have our new contract in place well before the expiry of the current contract. So that's great. Non-eligible source recycling. So the contract with TOPS for non-eligible collection is close to being finalized. And household hazardous waste compensation. So there's a report on the agenda today with respect to AMS's compensation. They're increasing it by a good amount, and just help offset the cost of operating the household hazardous waste depot. Okay, so we did have the environmental manager attend SWANA. the county of Simcoe. So she had a great experience there, great feedback. Just kind of seeing how things are done, and I think it's a great opportunity whenever you get a chance to do that, kind of get outside your bubble, so to speak, and see how see kind of some best practices in other municipalities, other facilities, and take the good stuff back with you. In terms of the provincial park proposal, so there's been a few meetings. We've had the biologist out to the site to they're undertaking a survey to determine whether or not there are any species at risk that warrant protection. I think it's kind of a it's a good basis for having this protected as a park. If there are significant species, we know that there are, for example, butternut in areas along the river, so and potentially some fauna as well. We have sent letters out to owners of land to the west of town-owned land, and I'll note that's an opportunity for a larger park. So the town and the land that the town is in the process of acquiring through active development proposals and in collaboration with the federal government, that land would be sufficient to establish and go forward with the provincial park. There are lands kind of to the west of all of that land that there's an opportunity to extend it and to kind of hook it up with the rest of the town. There's rest of the town-owned land kind of on the other side of the private property. So again, not a deal breaker if the owners don't participate, and certainly it'll be up to them whether they'd like to. But those letters have gone out and invited them to get in touch with us if they're interested. And the environmental manager met with Forest Ontario about a tree planting program, so that's great. In terms of building services, the town hosted the chapter meeting at Mattaway in October, and so that's great. City reporter, again, working out well. There's a lot of chatter going around about other options for e-permitting software, and it sounds like we made the right decision with the platform that we're using, and hopefully we're going to get that online portal going with the implementation of the new website. Just again with building services, so St. Thomas is moving along well. The CBO took me on a tour of it. He was kind enough to do that, and it's quite an impressive structure. There's quite a bit moving forward, as you can see. And this is just some pictures on the day we went out to the site. That's the gym. It's apparently one of the taller gyms that these bricklayers have built. So we think it's to try to bring it kind of level with the roof of the existing high school. But yeah. Okay, in terms of building permit summary, so our year-to-date values are still they're well in excess of anything before COVID. So that's great. I think anecdotally we are seeing kind of more activity on the commercial institutional side, whereas during COVID you had more activity on the residential side. So it's really we're still getting our permit fees, still getting good DCs coming in, and so that's where we are year to date. Planning services, so we've got a number of ongoing developments and delegated authority, so that the new policy went in place under OPA 35 for Bill 109, so that's great. Just have a number of ongoing developments. 100 Gate Phase 4, I'll just note that sewer work was completed last week. It took 3 days. They're in the process of submitting the documentation to the town for review and submitting it to the design engineer. Of course, the design engineer is responsible for certifying that the works are in accordance with the designs and providing that certificate to the town for acceptance. Phase 5 and 6, again, there's nothing further on that at this time. 130 Arthur Avenue, again, nothing further. We understand the site plan approval applications moving forward. Mayhew subdivision, surveyor was out to site. They're going to be actually adding one more unit to that. So instead of 19 singles, it'll be 20, which we think is acceptable. St. Joe's again moving forward. And just of note, Greater Madawaska, the planning services, we're scaling that back, just so I can focus a bit more on what's going on in Renfrew. Obviously, we have quite a bit going on here. So capital projects, official plan review, again, a number of them related to planning. So the next step with the OP review is issues and options report, attainable housing. Committee will be aware that the action plan was approved by council and received. The action items again are pending the approval of half funding substantially. So we haven't heard anything back yet. We were asked for additional information, which we think is good news, but nothing final yet. And then expressions of interest. We'll be working on those. And then the 2 secondary plans, again, we're just again in the background stages. Drafted up an initial land use options with the transportation and parks and rec consultants, and we're getting feedback from them on that. Manager Springer just put this together. So this was the open house. We understand it was well attended, about 40 people at the Vic. So there was really good engagement there. The consultants toured a number of facilities and our parks, waterfront, etc. And there's a survey online until November the 10th. There's some nice photos there. Just in terms of construction projects, and just asked Director Aslan if there's any gaps here, if there are any questions. He'll hop in, but I'll cover them here. So O'Brien Road, Gillen and Mask, again, the project substantially complete, and there are a few deficiencies related to sod. It'll be spring 2024. It's projected to be under budget. Stewart Street, Highway 60. So there's deficiency work underway regarding catch basin adjustments. It may be done already. I've seen them out there. Once these are finished, the project will be substantially complete. Joffrey, Haig and Dufferin reconstruction. So again, there's some dates there, award and target completion, the budget, change orders, currently on budget, paving's completed, minor cleanup, and the project's considered again to be substantially complete. Argyle Lockheed, so this is a 2-year project. It was awarded on May 9th. Target completion next fall. So there are change orders in just over $500,000, and council will be aware that the basis for the majority of the change orders was base asphalt not being suitable for shave and pave. So it'd be the asphalt base needs to be replaced. And so that's the basis for most of those change orders, but there's that's well within the contingency. So project is on budget and on schedule. I think actually they're about 60% complete at the end of this year, which is ahead of schedule. This is just some photos. I think they've been shown before. The condition of the base asphalt, obviously not suitable to put the wear course on that. It would not, the road would not last if you tried to use this as your base. So it has to be taken up in its entirety and new base put down. Okay, Maloney Road culvert, that's basically done, and minor cleanup, and it's on budget. Gillen Road rehab. The paving works completed, minor cleanup, substantially complete, and it's on budget. McNabb Crescent. So the project is that one kind of started later. It was awarded later. We're told by the project engineers that it'll be done this year. And it's on budget, currently on schedule. On Monroe Harry Design. So we're at 80% design on this. There was a lightly attended pick held on October the 11th, and the design's being finalized. This is a full depth, I believe a full depth reconstruction with a significant storm component to establish appropriate outlets. Dominion Lynn, that's at 80%, and there'll be a pick in early winter, same thing with 8. Mattaway water main design, that's in the early stages of design, and JP2G is undertaking that, and there looks like background investigations are complete. O'Brien Road Master Wrangler, it's at about 50% design. There's some property acquisitions required for the roundabout, and we're working on right now working on appraisals and coordinating with the property owners to acquire those lands. And with all acquisitions, it'll be the appraised value. There have to be compensation offered to the property owners. It's not just give us your land, please and thank you. It'd be as though they sold it. And again, typically not a significant amount of land. It's just the widening that's required to accommodate the traffic circle and the multi-use path connections. Again, this is considered to be on target for tender in the early winter. And so that's the presentation. If there are any questions, be happy to answer them. Any gaps to be filled in, Director Aslin's here, and he can hop in. Thanks.
Yeah, and go ahead, Clerk.
Sorry, just before we go any further, Director Withers, could you please admit Revimo?
Oh, yes, thank you.
Sorry, I just want him as part of the discussion.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll just add, Eric, that the capital projects actually went very well this year. We didn't have too many problems, and the weather held out later into the fall here, so we were able to get a lot of the paving work done that needed to be done. But I think the quality of the work was good. The decision to peel up the asphalt was a good one, and allowed the Argyle Lockhill project to see a much improved road surface there. But the projects went very well this year.
Thank you, Director Aslin. Is the Reeve on right now, Clerk? I just don't see him in the feed.
He's connecting.
Okay, he's connecting. Councillor,
and through you, Director Withers, if you could actually stop sharing your screen, that might be easier for everybody to, and reassign me host.
There we go.
Okay. Let me see if I can do that.
Thank you.
How do I do that?
Right click on your top, the 3 dots at the top of your little screen.
Got it. Make host. All right, you're hosting now.
Awesome, thank you. And there is Revimo.
Hello, Reeve. Councillor McWhirter, any questions with regard to this? And Peter, I don't know if you heard the presentation, but jump in after Clint if you have some questions there. Go ahead, Clint.
Yeah, I just got a couple. At the beginning there, we talked about a couple of positions that we're currently hiring. I just looking for clarification of exactly what the job is, because they're new positions, like manager of engineering asset management and engineering technologist. Project management specialist, I understand we should have had one of those when we started Mattaway, but the other two, I'm just need clarification as to exactly what those jobs are, since it's something we've never had before.
Sure. Yeah, and so the manager of engineering and asset management will substantially kind of do what Mike and Connor were doing up to this point. So they'll be taken on, essentially be overseeing all the capital projects, the development design review, the asset management. So essentially everything to do with engineering and infrastructure, that position would be responsible for, and the engineering technologist and project management specialist would report to that manager. So it'd be it'd be its own division. So within the department, there, just kind of as its name suggests, it's going to have the development function, which is planning building. It's going to have the environment function, which is Amanda Springer's area with the landfill, water, wastewater, collection services, anything green that's not a park, essentially. And then we have the engineering division. So I think we've always had like an engineer or like an engineering person along with an engineering technician, and those two are, I guess you can say those have always been around. They obviously need to be filled with with our current vacancies. And then the project management specialist, that would be a new one. And yeah, I would probably agree. It's worth having for a number of capital projects that we have that don't really have, I guess you could say, that don't really have a home, that needs, kind of dedicated, focused attention. But they'll be driving timelines and budget substantially, and kind of coordinating with consultants and contractors. So those are the three positions. Yeah. So my understanding is that the CAO has been working with council on establishing those, and so those have been put out, and we're in the process of recruiting for them. Thanks.
So from what I understand, they'll be basically taking the place of Connor and eventually Mike, and so they're just renamed positions more or less.
Yep.
To take up that's what I was looking for.
Yep.
We're not going out and hiring 5 more guys or 3 more guys just off the cuff or something like that. They're actually replacing jobs that were available, vacant, or will be vacant in the spring with Mike. So not that we want to see Mike gone, but yeah, he is leaving, so it's good for us, like for that kind of a session. So that's great. In regards to Chair McDonald, if I may, just in regards to the work that's 80% in engineering, are they included in the budget, or are those items that we'll discuss once the money is once we get a figure, and then could be added to the budget, or were they actually in this budget they're looking at right now or reviewing right now?
Yeah, so I'll take a swing at that. I'll take a swing at it, and then Mike will save me. So the design has been approved. So like the design budget is in place, but the construction side, that capital will have to be approved as part of 2025.
Okay, so it's not included in 2024. That the one that we're currently looking at, it's not going to be in that right now.
Yeah, anything at design is just design only until council approves the capital budget for the actual construction phase.
Okay, that's great.
And then Michael, help me out.
Yes, through the chair. Those were projects that we were getting shovel ready, essentially. So that means getting the design ready. If there was grant programs that become available, like the Monroe Harry project is a great project to apply for funding. It's a very expensive project, so if we have the design complete, then we'd be ready to submit an application for funding. But the funding for the actual construction will have to be set into the priorities of all the other capital projects and funded through the 2024-25 budgets if they're to proceed. So at this stage, there's no commitment to proceed to construction, but we're committed to getting the design complete.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Yeah, and that's just a good point. Just building on what Director Aslan was saying. So there's some of these projects that are designed that you might want to hold on to until funding comes through. If whether it's a green stream, there's oftentimes millions of dollars. So instead of the town, taking the whole thing on its own, if it's kind of you have the design ready, and it's done a couple of these. Director Aslan's done a ton of these, but I've done a couple of them with him where you put the funding application through, and you have a lot better shot at getting getting the money if your design's done. So they know you're serious about it.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor McWhorter, any other questions, or are you good?
Oh, I'm good for now.
Okay. Revimo, any questions, or on to me? Eric, I have, in terms of timelines for these 3 new positions to top up, are we looking before the end of the year, or what, do we have a timeline for that?
Yeah, so the Eng Tech one says 2024. I'm gonna say like we're interviewing right now for all 3 of them. I think that was I think that was old timing. I think we're looking to fill those positions. We've interviewed for the Eng Tech and the project management, and then we're interviewing for the manager position tomorrow. And I'd like to have offers out no later than next week if we can, after checking references and whatnot. That would be the goal, just to kind of get everyone in here. And we have staff, like everyone's kind of picking up the slack right now. But as an example, like Amanda is helping out a lot with kind of the project management side of the road jobs. Mike is helping. He has been, and he's continues to be kind of the technical expert, the engineering side, and working with the consultants and on the design and kind of any technical advice or decisions. Whether there's an infield recommendation that comes in through the consultants and it needs to be double checked and verified. Mike's been assisting with that, and glad to have him continue to do that for as long as he's able. And but yeah, so we got a lot of people kind of pitching in and picking up the slack, but I think it's we need to get these positions filled ASAP is kind of my sense.
Okay, thank you. And I have 2 more questions. They should be short answers. I'll leave it up to you. The first one is, you talked about the grinding process. Can you expand on that? Is that an annual thing? I know you said we come under cost for this year. Is that an annual thing, or is it as required?
The grinding, yeah. So that's so my understanding is that's an annual thing. Basically, we get anything that's like wood or mattresses. So we pile it up for the year, and then obviously the piles get pretty big. And then we contract out a grinding company to come and turn that all into cover, because we're supposed to be covering all of our waste like at the end of every day, and you can use soil for that. But if you have this grinding material left over, you just use that, and that's great. And the other thing is, like the mattresses. Manager Springer's explained to me the mattresses will actually float to the top if you don't grind them, which is funny. I never really thought of that, but so.
Okay, and the last one is we'll go over to asphalt now. You talked about the top layer. Is there any way to determine, because I know we've all talked about maybe doing shave and paves and that sort of thing. Is there any way to determine if a road is shave and pave suitable prior to starting to lift it up? And I'm talking about Argyle right now, where we didn't realize it until we started to dig a bit deeper. But is there something that can be done prior to that? And I don't know if I saw Director Aslan just pop in, so I'll leave it whoever wants to answer that.
I'll take a crack. So so there are geotechnical investigations that are undertaken as part of the design work, and that does look at the pavement condition. My guess is that the geotech is done kind of in a grid, and it's like any other borehole work or any other test pitting, is where you do it in a grid. And sometimes you hit a boulder that you didn't hit with the boreholes or what have you. So there's probably some of that, and then there's probably some of it. It's hard to know until you get the top lift off. But I think best efforts are made to identify pavement condition before through the geotechnical work. And I think just moving forward, again, the language around road rehabilitation. So as opposed to full depth reconstruction, if council wants to just do asphalt, then we're going to get away from the shave and pave terminology, because it's not always possible. What we'll start talking about is asphalt rehabilitation. So that implies that there's a potential that the base may have to be replaced. So you maybe some new granulars, regrading, and then new base and top lift. But that'll kind of be, I think, where we're going to go in terms of costing for any just asphalt work. And then if shave and pave is possible, we're saving a few bucks. So that's my best shot. I don't know, Mike, if
through the chair, you actually did pretty good there, Eric. So when we do geotechnical on the roads, and they essentially do boreholes that like spaced out like 30, 40, 50 meter spacing. So what you don't get is you don't get the sort of the whole history of how many times the road has been overlaid. And and what we saw in Argyle is there's very inconsistent pockets of areas where they were patched in the past. So there's really no way to predict it from the surface. You can try to look if it's broken up on the surface. Well, it's broken up down below, but if the top layer is still intact, once you grind it off, you might find that the base is not satisfactory. So the radical difference you'll see is if we would have overlaid, and I did speak to the paver on this one here on that Argyle, they were prepared to pave it, but they would write a letter saying there's no guarantee, right? Because there's no guarantee that the quality will be there and that it'll survive more than sort of 5 years without breaking up. So when you remove all the asphalt and regrade the granulars, then you can rely on that surface. And I think I did present at council that even the asphalt cement is different now. Like it's able to expand and contract a lot more than the old asphalt that's been put down over the years. So shave and pave, I know politically it's popular because you think you can really make a larger number of roads look like they're new, but they don't typically last. I think Reeve Emo suggested that in our tenders that we include a provisional item to do the whole, like to peel the asphalt and regrade it, and then get a shave and pave price. So at least we'll have both prices covered in the tender, and then we can approach council depending on the tender value and the prices and what we're finding during construction. At least we'll have the prices identified to do it properly and get a longer lifespan. Or if there's really a lot of financial pressures, then we may choose to do a solution, the shave and pave, so to speak, that may not last quite as long, but you might get 10 years out of it as opposed to 20 or 30. So does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Aslan. Any other comments or questions? We're good. Okay. Thank you very much. We'll move on to D11. Yep, go ahead, Carolyn.
Just letting committee know that the applicant for that item is sitting in the waiting room. So at council's readiness or at committee's readiness, I'll move him over. So I don't know if you want me to do that now, Director Withers, or if you would like me to hold for a bit.
Sorry, I'm muted. Yes, please. You can move me now.
Okay.
Thanks.
And I'll wait for that, clerk.
Yeah. So Josh is just logging on now. I'm assuming it's Josh. Josh, just making sure I've just moved you into the meeting. If you could hear us, and two, if you're able to turn your camera on, that would be great.
I cannot turn my camera on, but I can hear you.
Okay. So just to confirm for the record, who are we speaking with?
It's Josh.
So Josh, can you give me a little more details? So first and last name and either your address.
Yeah, Joshua Curlati, 239 Raglan Street, Renfrew.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Josh. We're just going to move ahead and read the motion at this point in time.
Yeah.
It's motion number DEE-231101 that the Development, Environment and Engineering Committee recommend Town Council approve application number D-14-148 zoning bylaw amendment for lands located at 249 Raglan Street South, having roll number 47-48-000-035- 10-400 to permit the temporary use of the subject lands for the purposes of a restaurant, cafe patio. And do I have a mover, please? Thank you, Reeve Imam. And Director Withers, are you going to touch up on this?
Yes, I'd be glad to. Thank you, Chair McDonald, and through you. So, so this application here is with respect to the temporary use of the post office property for to continue to be used as a patio. So this was put in place during COVID and under a temporary use bylaw, and so this is essentially you're permitted to extend temporary use bylaws for a period of 3 years. So the applicant would like to continue to use the property for that purpose. And I'll maybe note the reason that it's not as a straight zoning bylaw amendment is that the kind of the redevelopment of the post office property is still pending, and a rezoning application would go forward at the time that's sorted out, and we kind of know what's going to go on the post office property, and it could include commercial uses, and then this bylaw would no longer be required. But what I'll do is this is technically a public meeting under the Planning Act, and I know I mentioned to the clerk that I wasn't going to need to read recitals. I will have to. The notice has gone out to the public. This is technically a zoning bylaw amendment, so it is appealable. There is people are able to request notice of public meeting. I will note, though, that the only people that are able to appeal are those who submit comments in writing or oral comments at a public meeting. We've received no written comments on this application, and it's the applicant alone in attendance, and I assume that he'd be in favor of his application, so there'd be no risk of appeal on this. But I will read the recitals just out of prudence. So anyone present at a public meeting may submit their concerns or comments in respect of any proposed official plan, zoning bylaw, or proposed amendments thereto. Any and all comments and information submitted, whether orally in writing, including identifying information, becomes part of the public record. Could be made publicly available at any point, including on the town's website. Anyone may obtain additional information relating to the subject applications by contacting the Department of Development, Environment and Engineering at the Town Hall, 127 Raglan Street South in Renfrew, from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday to Friday. If anyone does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the town before the bylaws are passed in respect of official plan or zoning bylaw amendment, public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of the Council of the Ontario Land Tribunal, and I just mentioned that. If a person or public body doesn't make oral submissions at a public meeting or written submissions to the town in respect of an official plan or zoning bylaw amendment, and they can similarly not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the OLT unless, in the opinion of the tribunal, it's reasonable to do so. I'll note, if you wish to be notified of the decision, this doesn't include the applicant, they'll always get a decision, but if anyone listening would like to receive a decision of the town on this matter, you must submit a written request prior to a decision being made by council, which will be should go next Tuesday on the 14th. Person or public body may file an appeal with the OLT within 20 days of the issuance of notice of decision. So when that goes out, it's a 20-day clock. Person or public body must submit the appeal to the town, which has to include an explanation of the reasons for objecting, in addition to paying the required fees set out by the OLT. And I'll just note, Josh has already identified himself. If anyone else shows up and would like to speak at the public meeting today, you're asked to provide your name and address for the record, and to ensure you can be contacted in the event of an appeal, to provide your contact information to the clerk, which has already been done for the applicant. So that's great. So just in terms of the application, I've already summarized it. The patio is existing. It's generally kind of 6 by 22. Those are approximate dimensions, and we've not been advised of any issues with the operation of the patio. We've received no comments from the public on it. Staff have no concerns with the continuing. So at the pleasure of the committee and council, this bylaw would go forward and would authorize the continuation of this use for 3 years from the date of the bylaw. And we are recommending that it be approved. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Any questions from the councillor or the Reeve? No. Thank you for the narrative there, Director Withers, and we'll take a vote. All in favor? Thank you, and it's carried. Josh, thank you for standing by as we process this, but we're good to go now and the motion's been passed, okay?
Great. Thanks for your support.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Okay, we'll move on to D12. The motion is DEE 23-11-02, and I'll read it. The Development, Environment, and Engineering Committee recommend that Renfrew Town Council approve a CIP grant and authorize the execution of a financial incentive program agreement with Candace Plots Design in relation to a facade, building, and signage improvement grant and planning and building permit fees rebate for the property located at 188 Raglan Street South, having roll call number 47-48 000-055-12300 in the amount equal to $2,446.10. Do I have a mover, please? Thank you, Councillor McWhirter. And go ahead, Director Withers.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So this is a CIP grant. We receive them somewhat routinely for signage replacements and other improvements to facades in the downtown area. The CIP primarily applies to the downtown. It also applies to the other commercial districts in a more limited fashion. This particular application is for the replacement of a sign. It's actually already been installed. We are adopting a bit of flexibility. Just in this case, the applicant wanted to kind of open their business, get started, and so just applying a bit of flexibility and allowing them to still apply for this grant. The project is eligible. They did submit 2 quotes, and ranging from 48.17 to 51.92 HST included. The grant is applicable to the lowest quote. So for the facade building and signage improvement, it's 50% it's a 50% funding amount up to $2,500. So your theoretical maximum project cost is $5,000. Anything over $5,000 is not funded. And then there's also a planning and building permit fee grant, which is 50% of the application fees, which in this case it's the minimum fee, $75, so $37.50 for a total funding amount of $24.46. If the committee approves this, the agreement would then go forward to council for approval, and the applicant would submit their paid invoices, and then they would be rebated the money in accordance with the financial incentive agreement. So that'll be it. Thank you.
Thank you, Director, for the narrative. And I should note that we were all invited out to the ribbon cutting for today at 10 a.m. We weren't able to make it. We're on this call, but congratulations to them. Any comments or questions from the floor? None noted. We'll go to the vote. All in favor? Carried. And we'll move on to D-2. D-2-1. Building internship policy. And the motion is for DEE-23-11-03. The Development, Environment, and Engineering Committee recommend Renfrew Town Council adopt the policy to establish a building internship program. I do have a mover, please. Councillor McWhirter, thank you. And go ahead, Director Withers.
Yes, thank you, Chair. And through you. So this is a new policy. Actually, the internship program has been in place for some time, but the ministry has added some additional flexibility that makes the program quite a bit more appealing. There's limited reporting required, and basically the ministry just wants to know if there's ever any issues. But outside of that, it's pretty flexible. We need to have a policy in place in order to have put the program in place. So I'll note that we do have our planning and building coordinator, Ashley Rathwell, is a building intern, will be under this policy. And she's been going around with the chief building official. She's written her legal and has passed that. So she's able to operate under the supervision of the CBO. And so this will allow her to continue to do that kind of on a more formal basis. So that's great. I think anytime we can make use of internal resources in different ways and different skill sets, you know. So anyhow, this is I think the policy, like it's not you know, it's pretty straightforward. It's an internship of 18 months with the possibility of extension. Essentially, they operate under the supervision of the CBO once they get their qualifications, and they don't, you know, they don't need to operate as an intern. They can their enrollment in the program can be terminated, and they can just operate as a regular inspector. Then there are a number of notification requirements, etc. But I think this is good news, and we'll get this in place. And I think just generally, not for the town of Renfrew, but there is a need for building inspectors generally throughout the county. So I think this is a great approach.
Thank you, Director. Councillor Reeve, any questions or comments with regard to this? No. Okay. No, I think it's a great idea, and I didn't know Ashley was in the process, so that's good news. I like to keep things in-house when we can. Go ahead, Councillor McWhirter. I saw your hand up.
Yeah, I just like to add that comment, Chair. Ashley's been working with Tom Webster, our building inspector, for a while now, so I think it's a great fit. It's makes sense that she does this. She seems to enjoy the job, so good on the town to utilize our assets already in place. This is good news.
Yeah, totally agree. Okay, we'll go for a vote. All in favor? Unanimous and carried. And we'll move on to the next one is D-4-1. Anything else sorry, before we go there, anything else to add, Director, or are you okay?
Okay, move right along.
Okay, thank you. The motion is DE-23-11-04. The Development, Environment, and Engineering Committee recommend Renfrew Town Council direct staff to finalize project planning and site selection details and support a grant application for electric vehicle chargers in public places, subject to allocation in the 2024 budget. Do I have a mover? Councillor McWhirter, and go ahead, Director, with your input.
Thank you. So yes, this is just bringing forward and updating the committee and just getting direction on where to go from here. So the previous report, so we were aware of a federal program that it looked like it was going to be issued kind of late fall, early winter, and I believe it was around 50% funding. The province has recently released a new program, which is kind of sweetens the pot a little bit. The contributions from the town would the program provides funding of about 75% of eligible project costs. So it's another good program. We don't necessarily have, there's nothing forcing us to apply for it, but just kind of something to think about. And I think you know, we've been looking at this as an option, kind of identifying some options for siting. The idea was to try to put in place level 3 chargers, which are quite a bit more expensive than level 2, but they provide for fast charging, which kind of makes sense if somebody is visiting the downtown for supper or to shop. That might be a good economic development tool. That said, the costs are quite significant. Level 3 chargers are about $50,000 to $70,000 a piece, plus the costs for the actual servicing and installation. And the level 2 chargers are about $5,000 to $10,000 a piece, plus installation. So if we were to participate in the new provincial program with 75% funding, the environmental manager is recommending a budget of $90,000, which we're anticipating would be sufficient to accommodate up to 4 level 3 100 kilowatt fast chargers. or a combination of level 2 and 3, which we could then bring back to committee and council to finalize exactly what's going where. We've been working with Renfrew Hydro to identify kind of the best locations for them. There are constraints in older parts of town from an infrastructure perspective, and the location of transformers, whether they're pad mount or pole mounted. And in most of the cases, transformers are required, so there's going to be additional costs for installation. The environmental manager has considered that in the recommended budget, but of course, if Hydro comes back, they haven't finalized anything with us. But if it comes back and the costs are a bit higher than anticipated, we certainly bring that back to committee. But again, all this is contingent, so if any further direction is given to pursue this, it would of course always be contingent on council's approval of any budget for this. And whether the committee at this time is looking to move forward with it, or if this is something, good food for thought for the future, and we'll just look to the committee for direction on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Withers. Any comments or questions? Go ahead, Councillor McWhirter.
Through you, Chair, for Director Withers. I'm new to the committee, so first off, I understand we do have some charging stations in town. I have no idea where they are if we do. And if we do, are they level 2 or level 3 already? And what's the charging time between a level 2 and a level 3? The difference?
Yeah, thank you. I'll do my best here. But I know that there are level 3 chargers at the Canadian Tire.
Okay.
And I think those might be the only location. I might be wrong on that, but I know that there are level 3 chargers at the Canadian Tire. I think they're a lower kind of a lower charge, a lower voltage than the ones that we're looking at here. The level 2 chargers, I believe they're upwards of something like 6 hours to a charge, whereas the level 3 chargers will get you going and substantially charged kind of in a matter of like a couple hours. So that's why we're kind of looking at the level 3 chargers probably make a bit more sense if the committee wanted to move forward. Level 3 chargers probably make more sense downtown, where people, are probably not going to be sticking around for 6 hours. They're going to go for supper. They're going to maybe shop. And so the level 3s, we kind of made a bit more sense. And initially we were thinking in hydros, we haven't got costs from them, but they're telling us that kind of the easiest spot to put them would be the municipal parking lot beside the admin building here. And then level 2s would kind of make some sense kind of where people are carpooling, or say if people are coming for the day, like at Mattaway, for a tournament or what have you, might make a bit more sense there for the smaller chargers. Okay,
so the ones that are in town right now are actually don't belong to the town. They're Canadian Tire owns them, I assume. And yes, it does make sense to like the park and ride out at the info center or Mattaway. That makes total sense. Town property and town owned. My only issue right now is I think based on budgeting right now, I think we're going to be looking for cost savings. And yes, we're moving in this direction with cars, but I'm not sure this year would be the year to go ahead and do that. But I appreciate the work that staff has done. This is like another shovel ready project, similar to what we're already doing. And I like that idea that if we decide to pull the pin on this, we can go ahead and do it if there's funding, of course. But I think maybe this is one of the items that we're going to have to maybe hold off on, just because the budget is going through right now.
Thank you, Councillor McWhirter. Reeve, do you have any? Yep, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm more inclined to go forward with it, to and make the application for the funding, and then at the time review it, because of the costs. I think increasingly there's more and more cars on the road that need charging. I'm aware of someone last week who came through here, didn't stop in Bancroft like they anticipated, and ended up getting stranded on the roadway at some point. So I think the more sites we have, and it's publicized, the better opportunity for people to use them. And I think we have an obligation because it's infrastructure. We shouldn't, in the truest sense, we shouldn't be paying for it because it should be the car companies that pay for it, or the gas companies, because they're we didn't install gasoline tanks or propane tanks to run vehicles. But in this instance, given the push towards battery operated vehicles, and nobody seems to want to take the lead in installing the necessary infrastructure, it's going to fall to municipalities, unfortunately. And to put it off a year, I don't know if it's a significant risk or a significant issue, but at some point we're likely going to be doing it, because the province is not going to do it, nor is the federal government. So it's left to the municipalities to lead on it.
Thank you, Reeve. Any other questions or comments? None noted. I agree. It's a great program. And I guess this is my position, but I think it's a timing issue with regard to finances and budgets and all that sort of stuff. And I think, Director Withers, to your point, Councillor McWhirter, when we first had this about a month ago, I think there's 8 to 10 charging stations now located throughout the town, somewhere around there. And since that time, for the last month, whenever I'm driving around, which is regularly, I've noted, I think 2 cars being charged, and they're absolutely underutilized at this point in time. I've talked to some people and with regard to them, and it's almost like we've got almost too much, but everyone's going to have a different opinion, and I get that. I just see them right now as being underutilized. And my position is it's a timing issue, and do we push it off? Because we've been around long enough to know grants come around again. Do we push it off to a next funding period? Because we do have to look at budgetary cost savings, and I think that's where I'm at with regard to it. So if anyone wants to top up in terms of comments or questions. And Director Withers, do you have that specific? It's 8 to 10, I think, that we have right now located throughout the town. Am I correct? Charging stations?
I know there's, RPG has one.
Yeah. Metro.
Metro. Yeah, I know there are a number of them. The manager has a pretty good sense of the existing infrastructure. I think they're there. I don't personally have a lot of in terms of their existing usage, but I think it's an emerging technology for sure. I think it's a good chance that they would probably operate at a loss initially in terms of revenue, just as the technology takes time to in terms of uptake of EVs. I don't think there's any question really that the provinces and the feds are moving in that direction. I think it's very clear they've made some pretty significant investments in battery manufacturing plants. I think the direction is there. It's really it's a timing question at this point. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Any top ups, or are we good from the floor? Okay. And I had noted too, I think when we talked about this a month ago, I was hoping for more of a business plan, but I see that Amanda noted they're all privately owned. So you're not going to get the information that we would like in terms of it being either utilized to its full capacities, the ones that are out there, or if it's underutilized. I realized, and she noted that she can't get that information. So, okay. If there's no other questions or comments, we'll put it to a vote. All in favor? Okay, noted. And no one else, so we will have this motion is defeated. Clerk, what would you like to do at this point in time? I know it gets forwarded to council, regardless of the voting outcome, but what would you like to do from this end?
If it stands at this point, it would go to council with with committee's comments noted, and the recommendation. Basically, does the committee have a recommendation to not proceed, to change the timing frame? Like, is there another motion that wants to be put on the floor, basically? So if there's another motion for a different time frame to reconsider, to be brought back forward, as it stands right now, it's defeated. My suggestion would be is that it go forward to council with whatever the committee's recommendation is. So to completely wipe it from the floor, to postpone a time frame till next year or 2 years or?
Yeah, no, I like that idea. And I'll throw this out to the floor too. What if we, sorry, is this an option in terms of timings, and it keeps it within our cycle that we're still on here for council, but that if we maybe, I'll throw this out, if it's a motion to put it off for 2 years and relook at it at that point in time. I don't know if you'll see another funding program or an advancement in technology if we just leave it for a year. So maybe 2 years is something more appropriate, but I'll leave that up for comments and questions from the floor. Go ahead.
So before we
Yeah.
can comment and question, you'll need to put it as a motion and get so a mover would be yourself. Is that the Development and Environment and Engineering Committee recommend Renfrew Town Council postpone a decision related to EV chargers in public spaces for 2 years?
I'm good with that.
Okay.
move.
And I'll maybe just note at the staff level, if there are any other programs that come forward, we can certainly make sure the committee's aware of it.
And maybe if that's included in there, if there's any other grants or programs coming forth that we're notified directly or immediately to make a decision at that point in time. Any input? Oh, sorry, go ahead, Councilor McWhorter.
I just like to make another comment. I just realized there's two charging stations at Renfrew Chrysler, but the build on Reeve Emo's discussion about retail outlets doing it. Canadian Tire does. Maybe in 2 years, some of the other gas stations like Circle K, whatever, will jump on board, seeing it as instead of selling gas, you sell electricity. Like, I mean, there is a charge to it, so they can make money on it. So it'd be nice if retail actually did take it over. Maybe if we wait a year or two, maybe they'll catch up with this. So.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Go ahead, Director Aslam.
Yes, maybe a question to Eric is that something that would be eligible under a CIP? Maybe the town could initiate a grant program to businesses who want to do it through a CIP?
Go ahead, Director Withers.
Yeah, thank you through the chair. I think that's certainly an option. The CIP is likely going to be reviewed in 2024, and that could be considered. I think we're opening it up primarily to look at housing, affordable housing, and second units. That's something that we can add to it. Sure.
Okay, and so Clerk, just to get back to it, if we push it out, I'm throwing the term 2 years right now in terms of a timeline, but we also put in there, taking into consideration grants, what we're just talking about, the CIP or other programs that come in through the provincial federal government. Is that an option that people be comfortable with? Does that capture what you want, Director, in terms of even the CIP and what Mike Aslan spoke about? Go ahead.
Yeah, I think that would be fine. Thank you.
So the motion would read that that the Development and Environment and Engineering Committee recommend Renfrew Town Council postpone a decision related to EV chargers in the public spaces for 2 years with additional information brought forward to council should it arise.
Yeah, like subject.
That would be the amendment.
Yeah,
So
subject to additional information coming forth. Yeah.
So Councillor McWhorter has motioned that. As long as he's still okay with the wording, then you can put it to a vote.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? None noted. So all in favor? Okay. And we have it carried, and we'll move it forward. Are we good with that, Clerk? Okay.
So that'll be the recommendation that'll go forward. The original report will stay to council, which is the original recommendation by staff, but the motion stated here today from committee will go forward as the recommendation, and then discussion can be had at council.
Perfect.
That'll go through on the 14th.
Okay. Thank you. We'll move forward now to D-4-2. The motion is DEE-23-11-05. The Development, Environment and Engineering Committee recommend Renfrew Town Council approve the amending agreement from Automotive Material Stewardship under BL-83-2021. Do we have a mover, please? Councillor McWhorter and Director Withers, if you can go ahead and give us the narrative.
Yes, I'd be glad to. Thank you. Okay. So this this is essentially just it's a very, very simple amendment to the existing agreement with AMS. Essentially, there's CPI. There's a CPI adjustment to their contribution. So they pay us for every hour that the Household Hazardous Waste Depot is open. And just in case the committee is curious, AMS, it's a nonprofit organization, and it's producer led, and it allows the producers any used antifreeze containers, oil filters, empty oil containers. They pay fees based on the quantities that are sold, and then they provide those fees, a portion of those fees to the receivers or the organizations that manage disposal, and it's part of the producer responsibility under the Resource Recovery and Circular Economy Act from 2016. So it's been in operation for some time. So we do have an agreement with that organization, and this is just increasing the amount that they provide to us. If there are any questions, be happy to answer them. Thanks.
Thank you, Director. Anything from the floor for questions, comments? Nope, we're good. So we'll take a vote then. All in favor? Okay, carried. And we'll move forward now to D-4-3. The motion is DEE-23-11-06. That Development, Environment, and Engineering Committee recommend Renfrew Town Council accept the MECP landfill inspection report as information. Do I have a mover, please? Revimo and Director Withers, go ahead, please, with your update.
Yes, thank you, Chair. And so this is a kind of every 2 years, the MECP will typically attend the site. They were on site August 24th, and they will provide us with their inspection report to identify any areas of non-compliance. So they did have 3 non-compliance items that need to be addressed. They're shown in the report as NC1 to NC2 and NC3. NC1 relates to just more detail in the daily log, and that's been reformatted, so that's an easy one. Say NC3, go down to NC3, speaks to daily cover, and they requested a plan to address this issue. And there's quite a bit of uncovered waste. I noted earlier that waste is required to be covered at the end of every day. And as part of that, staff at the new staff at the landfill, new operating staff, they're quite experienced, and they've indicated that having some tracked equipment with an excavator on site is going to be very, very important to redistributing waste and ensuring that the waste cells are filled appropriately and in accordance with the contours. And so that's being recommended in the 2024 budget under capital items, and that will over time address that non-compliance item with respect to daily cover. The second item is a bit more significant in terms of waste not being adequately compacted. Just some historical issues with operators, again, no longer with the town. New staff, I think, are quite a bit more experienced and are aware of exactly what needs to happen in terms of the compaction and distribution of waste. And so things have improved significantly, but we still do have areas, particularly on the kind of west and south portion of the landfill, where the slopes are essentially, they're not navigable. They are very steep and you cannot run equipment on them, and the material is not compacted. So a couple of issues with that. Obviously, you can't actually, you're losing time in your landfill when you don't compact waste. So that's significant. It's also a potential risk for slope failure, and we'll see in the next report that the slope is kind of demonstrating some indications of instability, and so that'll need to be addressed. The engineering consultants for the town are working closely with the ministry on this. The ministry is aware of a remediation plan for these slopes, and that program of stabilization and reworking will be proposed over 2024 and 2025 under the direction and supervision of the monitoring engineers, WSP, that the town has retained. So those are the three areas of non-compliance. I think we have a path forward to addressing all of them satisfactorily, and the ministry is aware of all of our mitigation measures. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. And I noted that this is to accept the report, but we're going to be heading into the next portion, which will deal with some of the costing. Any questions or comments from the floor at this point? No? I do have a couple, Director, and what's the timelines for this? It didn't happen overnight. I understand that. Are we looking at it? This has been taking place over the last 5, 10, 15, 20 years in terms of to get us to this point, because there, as we note in the next portion that we're going to talk about, there's substantial costs affiliated with this. So what are we looking at as far as you know at this time? How far back does this go?
Yeah, so what the engineers are telling us, and the landfill is, the contours are updated every 2 years. And so in 2020, there was no indication that the slopes were essentially where they are at this point. And then when the contours were redone in 2022, there was evidence of the steep waste slope. So we understand that it is in the period of 2020 to 2022, and that's kind of the best, the most accurate time period that we can get at this time.
Any other questions from the floor? Yeah, go ahead, Councilor McWhorter.
So through you, Chair, to you, Director Withers, if we knew back then, it's just coming to light now. Was there no red flags thrown up at that time as to? I mean, I'm just thinking that if we've added to it over the past year or so, wouldn't that just make it worse? Like, or did we do that?
Yeah, no, I think those steep slopes have been identified again since the revised contours were done, and I think it's been the engineers have been working towards a solution to remediate them. It's required kind of some input from other disciplines within the engineering firm. So we have WSP as the landfill monitoring engineers, and they've had to bring in geotechnical specialists and operational specialists and whatnot to assist in coming up with a plan to remediate this. So without going into too much detail in the next report, I'll just note that I believe that this issue has been identified since the contours were updated, and so the engineers have been since that time they've been working on a plan to remediate them. Thank you.
Okay, when you talk about contours, and Director Ashton, I see you've jumped on, if you have any input. When you talk contours and slope, I get the slope part. The contours is when you're going into perhaps a different area to dispose of the garbage. Is that what you're talking about? Like this took place because we went into a different contour. Can you just
for sure.
hop up on that? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and if the director jump in any areas I'm deficient, that'd be much appreciated. But my understanding, excuse me, my understanding is that there's we have approved contours from the ministry. So essentially, the ministry kind of gives us a profile of the hill that we can build with waste, and then just appreciating that typically waste accumulates. And the hill grows at a pretty moderate pace. Kind of every 2 years is considered to be, a reasonable amount of time. So what happens is every 2 years, we'll get a surveyor to fly the landfill and produce topographic mapping that will show us what our fill area looks like and how it's evolving over time. And so in 2020, these steep slopes didn't exist at that point. We know that in 2022, when the surveyor flew it and produced the updated contour mapping, that at that point it was identified that we were now outside of our approved contours. So there's a process. There's an amendment to our fill boundary and the contours, or looking at redoing our contours so that they kind of reflect what the plan is in terms of regrading these slopes and kind of extending the fill area where we need to. Because we only have a certain amount of kind of horizontal plan view. If you're looking, we have a certain amount of area that we can actually put waste in that's approved in our ECA. So the engineers have been working on getting those contours and that fill area expanded to kind of reflect existing conditions. There are things that don't really make a whole lot of sense. Like there are straight lines when it comes to our fill area. Well, we don't fill in straight lines. That's generally round lines that we fill in, and so probably makes some sense to have those to kind of have our fill limit reflect what is really happening on the ground. And the ministry again is up to speed and working with the town on that.
A quick question to follow up on that. So they've given us 2 years to look after it. At this point in time, that one area that we're discussing right now is basically off limits. Does the 2 years give you enough time to go in there and sort that out in terms of safety issues, and then we go back to that area to continue on with landfill? Is that correct?
Yeah, thank you. And from a safety perspective, I'll note that there's we've received recommendations from the landfill monitoring engineers from a safety perspective right now. So the slope is off limits to anybody right now. It's roped off. There's no access permitted above or below the slope. So that's that's been implemented. So from a safety perspective, there's no issue right now with the slope. It's really from a slope stability perspective. Obviously, you don't want at any point your landfill your material to be unstable or to collapse or any kind of slope failure. We understand that the failure and its likelihood will probably be some sort of rotational slope failure where the kind of bottom will come out of it if it happens. So again, from a safety perspective, but from a remediation perspective, the slope would be substantially stabilized if council moves forward with the budget and the work program. It'll be stabilized next year in 2024 through what's called a soil buttress, is what WSP has provided us with. And the idea is that'll just be lifts of fill that will provide resistance against rotational slope failure, and that will stabilize the slope. And then from that point, 2025, we would move into a phase of regrading the steep slope so that it can actually be worked and fit within approved contours. So that's kind of how it worked out. But from a safety perspective, we're implementing the recommendations of the engineers currently. Thank you.
Thank you. And just a follow-up is, I guess we don't have too much of an option, right? Because this will, if we don't do anything, it affects the lifespan of the landfill site, right? Like we need to do something in order to get our full use out of that landfill. Am I correct in that?
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Compaction buys you time in a landfill. That's why you compact your material. Every landfill has a lifespan, and if you don't compact material, you lose time. So kind of regrading and compacting this material should give us more years at this landfill. We do have, I think this landfill has been planned relatively well in the sense that we have certainly far more time. I believe in the next phase, in phase 5, the environmental manager is thrown out kind of in the order of like 25 years of landfill just in that next, and we're not even there yet, right? So I think we have quite a bit. We have a good life left in the landfill, but this will certainly buy us some more time for sure.
Okay, thank you. Director Aslan, did you want to jump in, or are you okay?
Yeah, so Eric did pretty well in tackling that. Definitely the consulting engineers have been working at the landfill site and monitoring the site for probably over 20 years, and they do annual inspections to to review compliance. They do the survey every 2 years. And essentially what the purpose of the survey is to calculate how much material is actually, how much airspace has been consumed. So they do that every 2 years. And that's when on one of the updates, they caught the substantial difference. The town has been working with WSP, and previously it was Golder that got bought out by WSP. And they were proposing amendments to the contours, to the final contours, to allow kind of for, I guess, a better usage of the space that's available at the site. Once we did identify that the material was too steep in the one slope, we did identify immediately to the ministry, and we went and met with the ministry, and were very upfront about what the issue was, and how the problem arrived. But I think there is a solution that the ministry has been discussing with the consultant, and essentially it's revising the final contours so that we can get kind of better usage of the space in that back corner and solve the slope issue as well, and resolve a couple issues at the same time. So WSP has been working on revising the contours for the final slope. And that will require probably an amendment to our operation plan. That's probably part of the program that WSP is working on. But I think since then there's been changes in the environmental manager at the landfill. There's been changes in the staff that have been working there. So I think it's moving in a positive direction.
Thank you, Director Aslan. Any questions or comments from the floor? And again, this is just the motion is just to accept this report as information, although some of the stuff we've talked about will spill over into the next motion. So we'll go ahead with all in favor to accept the report. Thank you, carried. And we'll move on now to motion number D44. The motion is DEE 23-11-07. The Development, Environment and Engineering Committee recommend the Renfrew Town Council include phase 1 of the landfill waste slope remediation project in the 2024 capital budget of a value of $811,536. Do I have a mover, please? Anyone? Thank you, Revimo. And go ahead, Director Withers.
Yes, thank you, and through the chair. So just following on the conversation we just had, this is really just putting a dollar value to the phase 1 work, and recommending that the committee refer this to council for consideration. So the dollar value for the phase 1 work that we're getting from the consultants is in the area of about $725,000 and that's for construction of the soil buttress. And on top, we typically would always put at least a 10% contingency with non-refundable HST, bringing the total to $811,536. So that would be phase 2, targeted for 2024. The budget price is based on tendering this work out. If there are some savings to be found, again, depending on the availability of operations staff and the equipment available to do some of this work, there might be some savings. But again, we would consider that to be coming in under budget. I think just to be prudent, we want to make sure we're budgeting for the worst case scenario here. And that would be retaining a contractor to do this work. In terms of the material, there is a significant component that needs to be clean fill. So we are looking at options. There's material at Mattaway that can be brought over and will be brought over. There is some clean fill from some road projects at the Vic, at the park and ride. So that material will be brought over, and then any other clean fill. Of course, material coming from road jobs has to be tested, and if it's clean, we can use it outside of our fill limit, and then the material within the fill limit is can be contaminated fill. So we have some options there as well. There's again material coming in from road jobs that either has in one case a high sodium content, so it's not considered to be clean, has to be it has to be landfilled. So we can use that for a portion of the buttress as well. So the material costs, anything that we can't pull from road jobs or that we have stockpiled elsewhere, will have to come from the town pit. So the budget does not include any material costs. So the town would be supplying that material. So again, phase one is the recommended cost. For phase two, again, this is the reworking and the covering of the waste, and a potential closing of that section of the landfill, depending on the final design. That portion of the work would be recommended for 2025, including financing in that budget. The detailed design work for the regrading is not yet complete, and the budget so is very, very it's got quite a range. The engineers are telling us it'll be in the order of another $500,000 to $1 million plus contingency and HST. And again, there might be some potential for use of public works staff and resources in trucking material, potentially running equipment that if we can rent it. We are kind of actively looking at that option, but again, we want to put forward a number that envisions the worst case scenario, which is tendering this work out. Just in terms of financing sources, so the treasurer will be looking at financing options. It'll be a capital item, so likely be a combination of different transfers and reserves in all likelihood. There's the potential for debenture, but we'll leave that to the treasurer to determine. I will note that our current operating budget, we have had a good year at the landfill, and we're looking at a potential operating surplus of about $350,000. So that'll go nicely towards our costs here to remediate the situation. I will also note that in terms of an insurance claim, it was put forward to the insurer, and the insurer determined that it was not an insurable event. It's not an insured peril, and the damage wasn't done to any insurable property or building. Just doesn't fit within the coverage. So if there are any other questions, I'd be happy to answer them at this time. Thank you.
I will have some, but yeah, go ahead. Leave it with the floor right now. Go ahead, Reeve Emo.
Thank you. Just in terms of the insurance, did we talk about errors and omissions?
Thank you. We did bring that up, and we didn't get a different answer from them, unfortunately.
Okay, thank you. And then my second question, so prior to 2022, the last report that we got from the ministry was clean, and it didn't identify this. It was the normal overview of the contours and fill by the consultant that caught this in August of 2022.
Yeah, I'd have to go back. I can follow up with the committee on that. I'm not sure if Director Aslan would be aware. That would be.
I have it in front of me.
Oh, you do? Okay. So it was not like. Okay.
No, it wasn't mentioned in 2020. The last ministry report we had did not mention it.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? No. Yeah, no, I mean, it's a tough pill to swallow. We're looking at 1.5 million plus with regard to both phases from what minimum by the sounds of it, because we really don't know what the costs are going to be at this point in time. But I think, like we've touched up earlier on, we have no options. This has to be dealt with in terms of prolonging the life and the safety features. So in terms of, are we talking going into reserves for this, so it doesn't affect, or that's options that have to be dealt with, like I guess you mentioned with Aaron, the finance director? Okay. Is there any other costs that are coming up with regard to the landfill site, like in terms of the infrastructure that needs to be looked after? Because it would have been nice to use that surplus of 350,000 towards whether it's new scales or what lifespan are we looking at there, or the office. Is there some stuff that's coming up too that we need to look at down the road?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and so yeah, the scales, the cells were just done this year, so they've got a bit of life in them, but we understand that the scales will need to be replaced at some point in the future. The scale house at some time, at some point, might be worth a look. I know there's been some discussions about expanding the household hazardous waste depot, and we are putting forward a recommendation to procure an excavator, a tracked excavator, to assist with the other non-conformance item, and at the recommendation of our current operator, who has advised that it would be a real critical piece of equipment at the landfill. So we're putting that forward as well. So there are other capital items for sure. Nothing that we're putting forward for the 2024 budget outside of that in the excavator.
Yeah, go ahead, Reeve.
Thank you. And to the director, the track excavator, my impression is that we can't add that to the debenture on the two pieces of equipment that we have, because I think that debenture is locked up.
Yeah, that's my understanding in speaking to the CEO. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so with regard to this information, it's just to prepare ourselves for the next 2 years, Director. Phase 1 and Phase 2, we have a plan of attack, and we're going to be seeking money from the budget going into 2024 with regard to Phase 1, right? Okay.
Thank you.
Now, did we lose Councillor McWhirter? Well, we can still go for a vote. Am I correct in that? Yes. I can't hear you, clerk. Go ahead.
Sorry. Yes. You're just you can go ahead.
Yep. So we'll go for a vote. All those in favor? Thank you. Passed. And we'll move on.
And sorry, I missed that. Okay, never mind.
Yeah, it passed. Yeah.
Thank you.
So the next one, we'll go to committee minutes. The motion is DEE 23-11-08, that the Development, Environment, and Engineering Committee confirm the minutes of the Planning, Building, and Environment 8-2023 committee minutes dated the October 2023. Mover, please.
You're the only one that can move, because you're the only one at the meeting. We can vote, but you're the only one that can move it.
Good point. I was waiting for your hand to come up too. I'll move it. And we'll go ahead with a vote on that. Accepted. Thank you, Reeve. We'll move on to the upcoming meetings of committee. The next regular scheduled meeting of the Development, Environment, and Engineering Committee is scheduled for December 5th, 2023 at 10 a.m. and we're adjourned at 11:40 a.m. Thank you, everyone. Good meeting.
So my apologies. A doctor called like at 2 minutes to